All right, welcome to Meet the Coach. This is episode 3 of our summer, spring, fall, into fall collection as they drop. Today, we've got Coach Winston DeLattiboudere. Nailed that. Akron D-line coach. Super excited to have you on. We had you on, I'd say 3 weeks ago to talk D-line. Well, actually, as this played 5 weeks ago, probably. Right. I thought you did an incredible job. Would love to talk to you first. Just lay out where you played. You're in your 4th year of coaching?
I'm in my 3rd year total of coaching.
Okay. All right. So talk us through, your young coach. Talk us through why you got into coaching, how that even happened, and then to where you are today at Akron.
Right. Awesome. So played at the University of Minnesota. Ended up starting about, I think 37, 38 games in my career. So it was a blessing to be able to do so. Started my first game against Iowa at home, homecoming, my redshirt freshman year, after actually playing in my first game of multiple snaps against my now head coach, Coach Moorhead, when he was at Penn State.
Okay.
That was a cool experience. Saquon Barkley got us the first play in overtime, so I wasn't too excited about that, but it kind of launched me into playing in my career. Finished up 2020, January 1st, beating Auburn in the Outback Bowl at Minnesota. So we went ahead and we trained, and all those guys in that class kind of did that. And then, of course, everybody knows the classic thing with COVID happening.
Yeah.
So that kind of shut everything down. Went home for a little while, was training, different things like that, reaching out to different teams, email, LinkedIn, Twitter, everything I could. And draft day came, didn't get a call.
Did you think you might have got a call? Were you
I thought I might have. I was expecting a call from a team or two, just to be able to get probably like a mini camp opportunity or something like that. I felt like I had played enough reputable games where I could have been serviceable maybe for that mini camp season at least, right?
Sure.
So that happens. We go through that kind of a span of time. And I get a call from my mentor, who's Marcus West. He's with the Buffalo Bills now, but he was the DC at Charlotte at that time, and he was my D-line coach my redshirt junior year. So he calls me, and Coach West is so smooth. He's like, "Hey, bud, what you doing?" I'm like, "I'm at home, not doing anything." He was like, "All right, okay. So you ever thought about coaching?"
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, I was always kind of a leader in the room and different things like that. So it wasn't hard for me to bring people together, but I never thought about formally coaching. So he asked me, he said, "Well, look, I got this GA spot and I want you to come work with me. I want you to be my D-line GA this season." I'm like, I'm still chasing the NFL. He was like, "Look, take some time to think about it, pray about it, talk to your family, and get back to me." So I'm like, "Cool. How much time I have?" He was like, "You got about 72 hours.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Hangs up. So call my girlfriend at the time, who's now my fiance. And I'm like, "Listen, he wants me to do this. And she was like, "That's awesome. Coaches get paid a lot of money. You'll be fine." So I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be fine." So of course I text Coach West. I'm like, "Hey, how much does this make?" And when he tells me, I'm not going to put their business out there. He tells me it wasn't what I expected. Sure. So at that time, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go down here to make X amount of money. And I know what being a GA entails. So long story short, I took the shot, and it really wasn't even betting on myself at that time. It was betting on the intuition of somebody I knew cared about me and loved me. So I'm like, "All right, Coach West, if you're saying you think I can be good at this, I'm going to come down there and I'm going to give it everything I got." So I go down there, and I'm great on the field. I'm teaching things instinctually, but I get into the copy room and I'm banging on the copy machine and I look like a caveman around the computer. So it took a lot of long nights of Visio and a lot of long nights of just being able to work PowerPoint and figure things out for me to really understand the other side of coaching that's not detailed out. So after I kind of was put through the fire and the ringer, I did a pretty good job, I would say. I don't know what Coach West will say, but I think I did a pretty daggone good job.
Yeah.
Wasn't a great season, but at the end of the day, a lot of guys learned things and went on to progress and are going to probably play pretty good ball this year because of the foundational year that we had.
Sure.
After that, got a call from Mario Cristobal over there at Oregon. And that was kind of like surreal to me because at that time, I'm just a young kid who just figured out how to do this coaching thing. Excuse me. And I get a call from him and he's like, I hear you're kind of good at what you do. Let's see what you could do at this level. So went through a series of interviews for that, get up to Oregon. And that was tough because it was a high demand of things that I wasn't used to again, so I'm trying to get myself accustomed to another level of football and another level of demand. And to God be the glory, rose to the challenge and made things happen over there. Got to work with great people and found a lot of people who kind of got their arms around me being the youngest guy in the office. Of course, got a chance to work with Kayvon Thibodeau on the day-to-day, guys like Brandon Dorless, got to be around guys like Noah Sewell. So I'm around all these guys who are playing really, really good football. And I'm getting to observe it from an East Coast guy who played in the Midwest, who went down South and is now on the West Coast.
Yeah, I didn't even think about all that.
Yeah. It was a lot. It was like this the whole time.
Yeah.
So get to do that. And that was an excellent experience. Ended up coming up short in the Pac-12 championship and in the Alamo Bowl, but got a call from Coach Moorhead and he said I was on his list. And after that, 2 days later, he gave me a call and he said, well, you are at the top of my list and it's time to roll if you want to roll. And I said, yes, sir, I'm not going to let you down. So that's how we kind of ended up here.
I love that. So, but now it's tough. I was a GA, right? I was a D2 GA, different, but I was a GA. And, you're on the other side of the ball. I assume scout team stuff you're running. So maybe that was
right.
Like, what was your interaction with Coach Moore, who's offensive coordinator there, right? You're on the defensive side. Like, why do you think whatever you were doing as a GA on the other side of the ball was, he said, this is a guy I need to hire at the Division I level who's never coached his own room before?
Right. Little do you know it, and this is for any GA who may be listening, every single day is a job interview. And when you think about it in hindsight, it's extremely scary because you're like, oh my gosh, what if I was, messing around one day or X, Y, and Z. But if you take your job serious at a high level every single day, you'll impress a lot of people. And something I learned was it'll never be people on the same side of the ball oftentimes who give you your next job. It'll be people who observe you from another side of the ball or maybe special teams that say, wow, that guy is awesome. And we want to go ahead and give him an opportunity to do something elsewhere. So I used to run the threes and the fours for the D-line sometimes when the ones and the twos would run things on the offense. And we would stand back and schematically, Coach Moorhead would ask me, hey, why is this guy doing this? Why did you just tell this guy to do that? So every single day he's asking me these questions. And in the back of my head, I'm like, this dude is a genius. Why is he, asking me these questions? But really it wasn't for his knowledge. He already knew the answer to the questions. He just wanted to see if I had any method behind my madness. So being able to do that and interact with him on a day-to-day, and then being around guys like Coach Alex Mirabal and Coach Cristobal, who are O-line gurus, it taught me a lot about that other side of the ball. So I have a great deal of respect for them.
Well, yeah, what did that teach you? So you're working, I know you said great deal of respect, but you work with those guys who are, best O-line coaches, like they're up there, right? In the conversation that anybody has. What did that teach you being around those guys on a day-to-day basis? Different than where you got coached. I'm sure you had a great coach in Minnesota, around great coaches at Charlotte. What was the difference with those guys?
The amount of detail that it takes to play offensive line was mind-blowing to me. And as a defensive lineman, you're like, oh yeah, this is the toughest side of the ball. Like, we've got to be detailed with our hand placement here. And if we're going to win a pass rush here, and if we have to flip our hips here, but playing O-line is not just herding cattle. Like there's a counting system.
Totally, yeah.
And there's different technique that you have to use. And I used to sit in a room with Coach Cristobal and we would go over specific things offensive line wise before I would go out and I would run the scout team. So here's a guy who has a million things going on, but he cares so much about the detail of each side of the ball, that he's taking 15, 20 minutes out of his day to come over and ask me, hey, are you sure you know this blocking scheme versus this blocking scheme? Or this, when it's supposed to be looking like this, on film it looks like this. Do you have it correct? So not only did that make me hold my standard high, but that also was like, it was a humbling experience, because it showed me no matter what title you have next to your name, you can always come down and help everybody else who's at the bottom, quote unquote, of the totem pole.
Sure, sure. There's guys that do that. There's a lot of guys that don't do that too, right? It's and you know, part of it is him. He wants to make sure the guys are getting the right look too, right? But such valuable knowledge for you as this GA to be around a guy like that.
No doubt.
It's crazy.
No doubt.
So you went through your first spring. You got there. When did you get there? In January?
I got there in January, late January, right after my birthday. Yeah.
So first spring, if you could go back to February before your first spring, what would you have done differently, coaching wise, organization wise, structure wise, if you could?
I would have drew more cards.
Okay.
I would have drew more cards to myself, like not even asking anybody for any help. What happened to me in the season was I got catapulted into drawing a lot of cards, and now I'm not drawing them the same way I drew them at Charlotte. I'm drawing them in a totally different way and fashion. Yeah. So especially with the offensive line demand that I had on me now, because that's what I ran on the scout team when I was a GA over there. It was the amount of detail that I put into every single position on the field on those cards. So if I could have went back and did everything again, I feel like my effort was there. My attention to detail with technique was there, but I feel like my own personal development might have been lacking, and that it kind of like sucker punched me in the mouth when everything started up.
Sure.
But it needed to happen. I needed to get thrown in the water, and if maybe I had some floaties or something first, it would have helped me out. So
yeah. So what's your mentality going into year one on your end? Obviously, I'm not talking like, all right, guys play hard. Yeah, I get that. But like you from a coaching standpoint, and I don't know what your guys look like. Do you have, I know you have some transfers, at least one we were talking about before this. And
right.
Are there new, these guys are all new to you, but how many of these guys are new to the room? And then how are you preparing them? And what's your mentality going into this first camp with these guys?
It's a handful of guys who are going to be new to the room.
Okay.
But other than them being new to the room, we've been doing everything possible to bring the room closer. So playing defensive line, everybody's better if they play like this. And sure, that's the same kind of principle for every position group, but playing D-line, you have to do rush games together. Your chemistry has to be at a very high level. So actually one thing that's cool that we're doing right now is everybody in the D-line room is doing ballet. And it's very different. I did ballet my red shirt senior year summer.
Okay.
My red shirt senior year summer. So right before my last season. But I said, hey, we're going to do something that takes us out of our comfort zone. Everybody thought it was going to be easy. And yesterday night proved true that it was one of the hardest things that they've ever done.
Of course.
But they're in a place now where they're vulnerable. They're able to work on their craft. They're building flexibility in their hips, knees, and ankles. They're agile. Their footwork is going to be better. It's going to be more improved. And on top of that, like I said, they're having fun and they're together. So our mentality right now, when it comes to just defensive line play in our room, is I want togetherness. I want a great understanding of process. And I want them to play like their hair is on fire every single day they go out there. I tell them all the time, we're going to scheme things up. We have really great defensive minds. We have a head coach who cares about both sides of the ball. Don't worry about scheme. Excuse me. Worry about playing with your hair on fire. Worry about dedicating yourself to process, and worrying about understanding that this is still a game. And every day you're coming in here with your brothers to enjoy yourself. So having fun and being goofy are two different things. Goofiness leads to losing. Having fun leads to winning. So when you have guys who want to have fun but are dedicated to their process and are playing like their hair is on fire, you got a good combination of guys.
Sure. What if you could go back? It's back last GA question here.
Go ahead.
We do a lot of GA stuff on here.
I'm good, man. I'm good with it.
So if you could go back to before you were a GA and give advice, I guess, to other GAs who are going to be a GA, or to young Winston who is about to be a GA, what would be your advice to not only maybe getting a position? Yours is a little different, but getting a GA position, and then how to be a good GA?
I would say, and this is going to be super cliche, but just bear with me. Don't count the days, but make the days count. I feel like everybody who's a GA is like, when I get my own room, I'm going to do this. When I get my own room, I'm going to do that. Don't worry about getting your own room. Don't worry about anything. Take every single day and dedicate as much as you can to the people who are already in your room. Dedicate as much as you can to the coach that's giving you the opportunity to be in their room. If you work and you give everything, and when I talk about giving everything, I'm not just talking about staying up and drawing cards. I'm talking about being able to clean up the room after everybody leaves. I'm talking about you're not too big and prideful to wipe things down after everybody leaves, and just speak to people around the building, like the janitors and stuff like that. If you're not too proud to do all that, you'll get your own room later on and it'll all fall into place. But you have to pour every single piece of your heart and soul into your GA work, because that's your craft. That's where your feet are, and you got to stay where your feet are. So that's kind of the guidance I give them.
I think that's good. A lot, like you said, a lot of guys are looking for that next thing. And sometimes you're trying to look for the next thing, and then you think you're better than doing this thing, and it doesn't work the way you want it to work.
Nope, not at all. It does not correlate at all.
Yeah. How do you self-evaluate yourself? That's what self-evaluate means. Yeah. How do you do self-evaluation from yourself from a coaching perspective?
So I'll always sit back and I'll kind of decompress and I'll reflect. And the first thing I'll reflect on is what I see on film. So if something's happening repeatedly, obviously I'm either allowing it to happen or I did not coach it well enough. And if that's happened, I'll write that down. When it comes from an emotion standpoint, because if anybody talks about me, they're going to say, probably I'm passionate and I'm emotional, but I try to make sure I understand there's a thin line between being emotional and being kind of out of control. You can be passionate about some things, but once you get out of control, you're not a coach anymore. You're kind of like bordering fan. So I kind of make sure I reflect on how my level of focus was. And, I'm allowed to have fun the same way the guys are allowed to have fun, but I'm not allowed to get goofy. So I kind of like take myself back outside of myself, and then I evaluate how I might have looked to others and how I look to myself. Also, somebody that I work with now who actually is volunteering, not getting paid, Malcolm Robinson, I played with him. It's the best thing in the world when you have people in your room who will tell you the honest and complete truth about yourself. So Malcolm is like a little brother to me, and I'm going to go on a tangent about him for a second, but he's doing GA work right now, and he's kind of learning this coaching deal because he just finished playing college football, but he played with me. So he's not going to pull any punches. If he thinks something I'm doing is not right, he's not going to say it in front of all the other guys. But when we get in the office, he's going to be like, hey, look, that was stupid. And I'm going to tell you why. So he'll tell me that, and to a certain extent, he won't use the word stupid because he has a lot of respect for me, but he'll challenge my ideas. And I feel like in year one, right now, that's okay, because I have to be able to explain to him why we're doing what we're doing, because that's also helping me justify myself in the methods of my madness, like I said before. So he's awesome for doing that. And he also knows when he steps across a thin line, I give him a little look and he like kind of falls back like, okay, yeah, big bro is telling me to relax now. So so he's awesome. That kind of helps me out.
Good. What's success to you in your room year one? If we talk in January, what makes this a successful year for you?
I think success isn't going to be in the numbers this year. Success isn't going to be in rankings. Success is going to be the amount of progress that we've made from day one to the last day possible of this season. And everybody else is going to measure success by X, Y, and Z. I'm measuring success by how much can these guys stack on a day-to-day basis to understand how defensive line is being played, how a smarter player becomes a better player in all facets, understanding situational football, and then understanding that there's only one gear when you go out onto the field, and that's high gear. You can't take it down. You can't teeter it down. I don't understand what my job is, stuff like that. There is no excuses. It's just playing at a high gear. So this year, everybody else is going to analyze success by numbers and this, that, and some more. And I'm going to analyze success by us not making the same mistake twice, because we're now stacking days and we're dedicating ourselves to our process.
Sure. That makes sense. I love that. Last thing, I always end on this one. One coach you've never worked with that you'd like to work with in the future, and why?
This is easy. Mike Tomlin.
Okay.
Mike Tomlin. So I recently got to, excuse me?
Right up the street.
Right up the street, right up the street. No, but I actually got to meet him and talk to him a little bit. We went down to the Steelers practice not too long ago, and when he opened up the team meeting, he talked about running away from comfort and not allowing himself to be comfortable in his life, and urging everybody in the room to evade comfort in the same way. And when he talked about it, it kind of like ignited a little something inside me, because naturally, when we go through hard things or when we go through trials and tribulations, we look and we want to beg for comfort. And he said that this was one thing that he fought himself out of, and it kind of took him to the level of where he needed to be. So not only the fact that this guy is going to be one of the best coaches to ever do it, but I think that small segment, and also how much of a people person and connector he truly is, it would be awesome to be able to get the chance to work with him one day.
I love that. I'm going to write that one down for myself.
There you go.
All right, Coach. Appreciate the time. Great stuff. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.